join, and I can see people are coming in and we're letting people in the background. So I'm just going to get my chat optimized so I can see what people are saying, and we will kick off very shortly. Okay, welcome everyone. Let me just record in the background. I'll leave that to you to record for me, Helen. In the background,
it's already
missing people. It's already recording. Fantastic. We're recording it so that people who join late can grab hold of the recording if they want to. Also, the slides, we will make available a link to the recording and the slides to anybody if you wanted them for to use yourselves. Introducing you to our webinar, and the webinar topic this morning is how to use the principles of persuasion to influence change. And this is a topic that I've been training on for many, many years, and I think it's something that we could all do better in organisations. And at this time where life is quite challenging, what we do need to do is be a bit more persuasive, I believe, and it will help people come to terms with change more so. And very often we're in a little bit of a habit of being a bit bland when it comes to change, and that's my theory. So hopefully this session, which will take about 30 minutes, will give you some food for thought as to how you can enliven any communication that you're involved with, business-wise or otherwise. So my name is Lucinda Carney, and I can see from the attendee list that a number of you have met me before, virtually, probably. So I won't spend too long introducing myself. This is my background, corporate L&D. I'm a psychologist, and obviously I'm also CEO of Actus Performance Management Software, which is, this is one of an example of the value add offerings we try to offer just out into the out there into the environment, I suppose. We've been ramping them up since lockdown started to support people, really. It's something I'm passionate about, and if you find this or other webinars that you've attended useful, you might also enjoy the HR Uprising podcast that I host, and it comes out weekly on a Monday. So I'll let you read the rest for yourselves, the sort of things that I'm involved in, and do by all means link in with me, tweet if you're on Twitter. I always find Twitter harder to find people on. I'm quite straightforward at Lucinda Carney, and get in touch on social media. We'd love to hear from you, and I love seeing those of you who are names that I recognise that have been before. Thank you for coming again. So the purpose of this particular webinar is to share something called Cialdini. He is a great person. He wrote a great book about influence and persuasion, where he has done quite a lot of research on what actually has been shown to be more influential to people. It's all about communication. And we'll deep dive into the pros and cons of each influencing type, and then I'll run a couple of worked examples, a light-hearted one and a more work-orientated one, with the view that hopefully you can take something tangible away back into the workplace. So in terms of what we mean by Cialdini, I mean this, and why, and I was alluding to this earlier, sorry, I'm getting distracted by someone needing to be admitted from the waiting room. I'll just admit them myself. The key with change is we're all going through change, but there's a great adage, and I think it may have been a line to Stephen Covey, but I couldn't put the quote on because I couldn't remember who'd come up with it. So if someone on the chat knows who this quote comes from, but then please do let me know. And to that point, I do like, if you've been on a webinar here before, I will try and make it interactive. There's going to be some polls, there'll be a little bit of chat, just because even 30 minutes, it's a bit dull, isn't it? I'm sure you've been through some really dreadfully dull webinars, so we'll try and make this as lively as possible. So do get prepared to use that chat function and find it. So if anyone knows who this quote's by, then let me know. But the key of this is that people don't actually dislike change. You often hear that in the workplaces, that people don't like change. Although there are some people, it must be said, that have a greater preference for it than others. But people do tend to dislike something being done to them, where they don't feel they've had a say in it, where they haven't been consulted. And that is where change goes wrong. And at the moment, as we all know, we're in a continual state of flux with regard to things. So how can we make that more palatable for people? Well, how can we make it more palatable for people? And I suppose in this example here, I'm going to show you what I would say is quite a standard piece of communication. Dear colleague, due to the continuing disruption caused by COVID-19, we've had to review working and staffing arrangements. As a result, we will be closing the XYZ office permanently, and all staff will be expected to work from home 50% of the week and attend ABC office for the other 50% of the week. Further details will be available in July. Thank you. So what do we think of that? And thank you very much, Mark. Dean Ornish wrote the quote, and I haven't heard of them, so that is obviously something I've completely misquoted. Maybe it's been reused by Stephen Covey. So is that a typical bit of communication? Is that a particularly bad bit of communication, a particularly good bit of communication? Curious. I'm also curious, I bet we've got quite a few people who are HR. We do tend to have quite a high HR people professional. Toby says, typical and bad. Bad. It isn't it? I mean, so I worked for a blue chip organisation for 20 odd years, well, two blue chips for 20 odd years, one of which, I'll let you guess, you probably see from my background, but they used to send a communication out which was just like that, and worse than that, it would say scroll down to read English, which I thought was particularly good, so the start was in German. So awful, impersonal, but is it atypical? And unfortunately, I don't think it is all that atypical. And the purpose of this really is we will look back towards the end about a bit that's a bit better, hopefully a way in which we can liven it up, how we can improve that communication. And I don't mean liven it up just for the fun of it, it's improve it so that people feel happier about it. Because as you say, guys, it says it's impersonal, it's not great, but actually it's a kind of one of those just do it, just suck it up. And there's too much of that going on at the moment, and people have got too many other things that are stressful in their lives, so we need to make things better for them. So the proposal really is, how can we choose richer influential styles? And each one of these styles I've taken from Cialdini's research, with one exception where I've replaced one. And I'll go through each one in turn, and I'm sure you'll recognize some of these. And actually, when you start thinking about this, you'll realize that this is how when we see adverts, this is how people are messaging to us all the time. You realize you could say it's manipulation, but actually, if it's used with a positive intent, it's influence or persuasion. But being aware of it is also a good thing in terms of when you come across people trying to sell you things. So we've got 6 types here. We've got appealing to authority, social argument, reciprocity, logical reasoning, building rapport, and inspiring. As I said, I'll explain each one in turn, and the inspiring one I've swapped for one which is also a very popular one, which is scarcity. Scarcity you see a lot when they go, oh, you've got to buy this now, or the offer's only on for a certain amount of time. I've chosen to take that out and replace it with inspiring, which is also influential to people, because I think in the workplace a scarcity message is not a positive message generally. People don't want to feel manipulated, and scarcity, when it's a sales pitch where they say they've only got a certain number for a certain time and then you know they've got more, it makes you feel manipulated. So personally, I don't think that's the most positive one, hence I've replaced it with inspiring. So let's go through each one in turn and have a look at these different types that we can see. So the first one, which is appealing to authority. So we might see people say that the Department of Health guidelines have said that for most healthy adults, we recommend that these are the exercise guidelines that we should get weekly. So we should have at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity weekly, or a combination of the two. So if we were told to do something by the Department of Health, or as we know, we've been told to do lots of things, whether it's wearing masks or be 2 feet apart, you know, actually the more credible the authority, and very, very importantly, the more relevant the authority to that particular thing they're recommending. You know, if it's about heart disease, British Heart Foundation or something specific in that area is going to be more influential. If you're a doctor, something from the Lancet is going to be more influential to you than something from the Financial Times. So wherever the authority is, and in an organisation, the authority might also be the CEO or the board. The board say we need to do this. So those are ways in which we can be influenced by authority. Not necessarily a bad thing, but actually on its own, is it enough? That's the interesting question. But it's an authority, and depending on, again, how open to it are, we might ask, well, how good is that research? How many people attended it? Those also would be aspects that we'd look at. Very, very interestingly, sometimes we don't take authority don't find it as influential as you think it might be when you look at some of the circumstances. I'll try and stay, I'm not being political here, but some of the circumstances around Brexit, some of the authorities, the ones which in theory were more authoritative, like academics, were thrown. Actually, what people were more swayed by was the following one, which was social argument. Now, social argument, I am definitely showing my age here. In fact, anyone else remember the Whiskers advert? Please say yes at some people my age. So back in the day, in the 80s, I think it probably was, there was a great series of adverts where they would, they used to say, thank you. And there's a few people saying yes. 9 out of 10 cats prefer Whiskers. I mean, let's face it, it's completely tongue-in-cheek. How on earth can you actually say that they do, or back that up? But you've seen things like the Pepsi challenge they used to do. Certainly there was a lager company, wasn't there, that people said it was probably the best lager in the world, Carlsberg, was it? So advertising campaigns, which I think since the age of streaming, you don't get indoctrinated with quite so much. That's social argument. So where they're saying that someone else wants it. So GE, so let's say that you're also a large electronic company that's comparable to GE. You might say that GE have implemented this new restructure and it's saved them thousands of dollars. Well, that might be more influential as to why we need to act in that certain way. So it's a social argument based on people like us. And that is a very key there. So if Mrs. Brown next door's bought this model of car, that might influence you if you thought that Mrs. Brown next door, if they were an aspirational family, if you thought they definitely weren't, it might have the opposite effect in terms of influencing you. But it's very interesting that actually social argument, think about referrals, think about TripAdvisor, Amazon reviews, is very, very, very powerful in terms of influencing people. So if you coupled social argument with authority, then it's probably going to be more powerful, but be very aware that actually social argument can undermine authority in certain circumstances. So that's another type of influence. There's a couple of people in the waiting room, Helen. Let me smooth slides on. The third type of influence is called reciprocity. So it's also reciprocity or exchange. This is a really powerful one. And did studies which showed that quite literally, if you felt that someone had given you something, even slightly indebted to someone, you feel, or most people, not all, most people feel the wish to do something back. So in a work environment, it might be actually, if I cover your on-call for the next 3 weekends, would you cover mine for the following 3? Or you might have something which is a difference. I'll give you free business coaching if you can do my accounts because you're good at finance and I'm good at coaching. So that would be a fair exchange, although it's different. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same. I'll always remember the first time I came across this. So it's many years ago, and I went to got off the airport, I think in Turkey or something, and it was the first time people give you things in the street, and they gave me some flowers, and I kind of was a bit jet lagged and hot and fussy until I took these flowers off them, and then was really startled when they expected me to give them money, because I didn't realize that was the deal. But then I felt really awkward, and it's really stayed with me for a number of years. So sometimes when we're given things, this reciprocity, then we feel a level of indebtedness to that other person, which is fine as long as the exchange is fair and equitable. It's not about being indebted. It's actually a natural way in which we cover each other. So reciprocity, a fair exchange if we're asking people to do something different. Logical reasoning, or consistency. And say my German company that I used to work for was just basically logical reasoning it through a lot of the time. But you might see things where they say, logically, when people are trying to persuade you to change energy advisors, say, well, it's completely logical that you should change because you can save 60 quid a month if you change from energy provider X to Y. The interesting thing is, why would you not do that? So what is it that stops you from doing that? Is it the pain of the switch, or is it something else that influences you about staying with energy provider X? It's also something where you might make a business case. A lot of us are often asked to make business cases, and you want to have statistics in there. So it's about productivity increases or financials. We're often influenced by logical, what appears to be logical, evidential statistics, etc., for making a change in something. And the key with this also is we also like to carry on saying yes. So it's a consistency. So you might find people say, so if you were to just do this, which is a little yes, and then something else, which is a slightly bigger yes, then people like to continue to say yes because it's a kind of logical flow. If I already bought into your service enough to buy your entry level service, or you'll download your ebook, then I might then also trust you to do something else. So there's a logical reasoning or a consistency where we're influenced by sort of building up trust gradually. So we're on a fourth, and now we're on to a real classic one, which is we like to buy from people that we like, or we trust people that we like and know. So building rapport to others. So if you are wanting someone to influence someone, if you just come in and going back to that communication at the start, there was no rapport in it, and it's quite hard to build rapport in black and white communication. This is one of our challenges with a much more remote working environment. So how can we build rapport remotely or otherwise, because then people are more likely to be persuaded by us? Well, it is using things like we, our, us. It's using people's names. If you can make eye contact, well, actually it's interesting that many more of us have got over ourselves, haven't we? We've turned on video. In terms of this, in terms of working together more, so still have that eye contact, although rapport is a bit more awkward over a virtual scenario. One of the reasons for that, I think, is the time delay. So where you naturally, when you're in rapport with people, is you might be moving your body language. I'm waving my arms around now to support my words. Then you'd see that movement in line with what you're saying or they're saying. And that kind of builds rapport. When you think someone's slightly incongruent, which can be caused on virtual communication by this time delay, then it almost makes rapport a little bit more difficult. Using people's language, listening to them, asking questions, just being a genuine human being and recognizing them and having a relationship with people as opposed to just trying to influence them. That's when people trust you. That's when you're going to be able to influence them. So building rapport is something we should all be working on all of the time. And then final one is our inspiring example. Now, this example here, I am aware of the fact that this is quite possibly an urban myth, but it makes the point really nicely. So there is a story that President Kennedy went round NASA and was looking at various people doing their jobs, and saw somebody who was a janitor who was sweeping the floor, doing something really quite mundane, but asked him what he was doing, and he said, well, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. The point here is that person felt that his little role was actually much, much bigger and part of something much bigger. That is really, really important for us to help people feel motivated, engaged. It's one of the key things about engagement, people understanding that their objectives link to something bigger, seeing a sense of meaning, and inspiring people to, carry on motivating themselves after 12 weeks at home. So inspiring is really, really powerful way of persuading people, and it lasts longer, I think, than certain things. I think of things like in the NHS, actually, cleaning in the NHS must be a pretty revolting job, but actually that is seriously saving lives in that sort of environment. So often, however mundane the role is, when we see the bigger picture and we buy into the bigger picture of the organisation we work in, then that makes us feel more motivated. As I said, there is a seventh one, which is potentially scarcity. Just got to be really cautious about that one. So it's maybe about, actually we need to make the decision now, otherwise the opportunity will be missed. If we don't move now, then someone else will get that chunk of the market. So it might inspire action. Is sort of scarcity is a seventh option. So I said I'd do some examples here. I have got here, it is a real life example. I must admit it's from a number of years ago. So a bit of fun, and we're going to have some polls going here. So I'm going to start a poll, or actually I'm going to ask my colleague Helen to start the poll for me, if she can. I'm hoping I'll be able to see it, because last week I couldn't see the results on the polls. So what we've got here, and I'm intentionally giving you a very small amount of information. So you're a parent and a daughter, so you are the parent. And the situation is, your daughter wants you to spend £750 to buy a new bedroom carpet. On the face of it, they say, Mum, Dad, I want a new bedroom carpet. How motivated do you feel? And we've got quite a few votes here. Just get your votes in. It's anonymous. We're not going to hold it against you. Whatever you say is absolutely fine. It's just get involved in this and just get a sense of how this is. So at the moment, not at all, not really. Neutral are up there. Must admit, in my real circumstances, I was not at all at the time of this. And interestingly, she has since got a new bedroom carpet, but this is about 4 years ago, actually possibly longer. So, all right, so let's close the poll there. Let's see what we've got. So we've got almost 75 votes. Anyone quick more votes? That's it. Don't worry, you can vote on the next one. So the winner was 36% don't feel at all motivated. On the face of it, just say spend 750 quid to buy a new carpet. Next one, so most of us, let's face it, are not really keen at this stage in time. Fair enough, understandably. Well, let's see whether or not our daughter can be more persuasive and improve on that poll. So we'll guys, can one of you screenshot that just to grab that number? We'll see if we can move it on. So moving on. So now we've got a new version of this. Dear Mummy, because this was said to me, can I have a new bedroom carpet? And I should say please at the end. So on this occasion, I used to go very training for weeks at a time. So hello, Mummy. And notice, guys, what I'm asking you to notice is, can you see any of these influencing types? How was your week away? I've really missed you. Smile, eye contact, hug. I've put your favourite wine in the fridge and I thought we could have some sofa time together tonight and you can choose the movie. Did you know I've been doing some really interesting work in PHSE at school, back in the day when they went to school, right, about the health risks of old carpets. They showed us BMA, the British Medical Association research, which states that carpets that are more than 20 years old can reduce academic attainment in children. This is because dust mites can affect concentration, particularly in children, which can obviously affect studying for exams. In fact, Jessica's parents changed her carpet last year and her exam results increased by 25%. As you know, I'm absolutely committed to becoming a vet when I'm older, and I know that would make the whole family really proud. So it's really important that I achieve the best possible exam results, and it would make sense for us to remove any possible barriers to this. Therefore, given that my carpet is more than 20 years old, do you think we could replace it soon? In return, I'd obviously commit to keeping my bedroom tidy, haha, and would contribute £50 from my own pocket money. So it is an example. My daughter has had a new bedroom carpet. She didn't exactly write this, but it came out of when she used to write PowerPoint presentations to try and persuade us to do various things. And it was quite influential. And I reflected on this and saw which influencing types she was quite good at. So bear that in mind, apart from the fact that I appreciate that not everyone's going to. Is this a tongue-in-cheek example? If there's something and you're in that scenario and that had been presented to you comparatively, what would your motivation be now? Would you feel more or less motivated to invest in a new carpet now, regardless whether you've got 75 quid or not? So you've got another option there. It's good stuff. Nearly go. Keep them going. 5 more seconds. 45 out of 67 voted. A few more votes. Doesn't matter if you didn't vote on the last one. Would you feel more motivated? So this is a snap, very much a tongue-in-cheek example, but basically we can see that many more of us are much more motivated to do something now, to consider spending that money now, because we've had a more personal, maybe more personal communication, right, in terms of this. So everyone can see those results, I'm assuming, can't they? And yes, I could as well now. So the idea there is just to show you how enhancing those influencing styles can do it. So let's actually have a look and see whether you could recognize those influencing styles that were there. Actually, I think I've moved my slides in the wrong way. I'm just going to quickly skip ahead because I thought I'd got them highlighted. So that was back to our different types. Well, actually, can you remember on those, if anyone can see that? No, let me just go and highlight it, actually, because I think I've got it here. Sorry, I'm just going to put my slides in the wrong place. All right, so if you can remember which ones are which, we've got green, red, I've color coded them. So which do you think how was your week away? I've really missed you, smile, eye contact, hug, your favorite, you can choose. Which influencing type was that? You can put in the chat, which one do you recognize? Can you remember the types that was? Which one would that be? Just give her a minute to, can you remember them? So what are they doing what is she doing when I've really missed you? Right, okay, so people are doing the rent. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Great, everyone's got it. Absolutely. So she's rapport building. She knows what works for me in terms of that there. And I've seen that someone else got yellow. Okay, so someone has already said what they thought yellow was. So they're committed to becoming a vet and the whole family would be really proud. What was that one? So I've got, yes, green is building rapport. Well done, everyone's got that. I've seen that someone's got yellow. I'll just give a couple more people to think which one do you think the yellow one was. And Matt's got red. I'll come back to you, Matt. So what's yellow? absolutely. Okay. Mark, you're ahead of the game, you are. Right, so yellow is inspiring, absolutely. So committed to being a vet, that's a vision. We'd all feel really proud, so she's doing that. We've then got the red one, which is, what was a red? So shall I put your favourite wine in the fridge, and I'll keep my bedroom tidy, and I'll contribute £50 from my own pocket money, which I have to say, I can't remember that happening. What was red? What was red? Yep, you've got it, Mark. And Matt have got it. I'll just give a couple more people a chance to remember which one it was. Do you remember what the red one was, guys? Yep, absolutely. Cisa says she's making a deal. Reciprocity. Absolutely. Yeah, Leho and Sarah. Absolutely. So that's the reciprocity coming through, and Ben's got it too. Great. So we've done 3 of them. Now, what did you think the orange one was? I know that somebody has got that already. It was like the Matter Mark, I think. So the orange one, I've been doing research in PHSE at school, and they showed us other research, which this is absolute nonsense, by the way. Absolutely. So Sarah's saying Sarah, Chloe, and C. Payne. I'm not sure what your first name is. Sorry. Yes, so it's appealing to authority. Actually, it's not logical, it's appealing to authority. There is a logic there because it's from an authority, but it's much more going, they're telling us that these experts have told us those, so it's appealing to authority. Now, what was blue? What's blue? Yep, absolutely. So yeah, so it's Mrs. Brown next door, isn't it? So Jessica's parents said it's social reasoning. So we're giving an example. And let's assume that I think that Jessica is someone that is a high attaining person. Then that works there, doesn't it? So that's Jessica there. That's social reasoning. And then the one final one was the logical reasoning, wasn't it? The purple, which is, and it would make sense for us to remove, and anything that says, and it would make sense, is logical reasoning, to remove any possible barriers. You're kind of summarizing it. Therefore, given the fact, you do feel a bit like a salesperson closing something there, but therefore, given these facts, are you going to make a decision? So she is closing there, and it's a logical reasoning. Better time to do the logical reasoning when you've done all the other influencing first, right? Whereas if you start with just pure logical reasoning, it's not so powerful. So let's go back to that original example that we had initially. Oops, no, hang on, no, I have got to go back, sorry, because I actually skipped over it. So this was that one that we said was a bad example. Okay, so there was really, all that is logical reasoning, really. It's just information. I'm not even sure that there's any influence in it at all. Can anyone see any influence in that one? Not really. So I have had a crack at a different version. Let's see what we think of this and whether we could critique it. Tell me what you noticed in things. So see whether you can see me using influencing styles in here. I'm not saying this is perfect, it's just another example. So thank you for your commitment and flexibility during these challenging times. Due to your flexibility, I believe that we will exit this crisis as a stronger, more aligned business than we were before. As you know, we've followed government and Department of Health guidelines closely, and I've had to review working arrangements to ensure the safety of all staff. As a result, we have decided to close the XYZ office permanently. We've looked at working practices that have worked in other similar businesses, and a model of 50% home working and 50% office-based operating in bubbles has been shown to be beneficial to well-being and productivity. Apologise for the typos. I did this quite quickly. I need to update it. All staff will be provided with a grant for home working kit. We will also consider adjusted hours for those with longer commutes caused by the office move. Thanks again for your continued support to the business during these challenging times. Further details will be available in July. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so let's see what you're saying. So I've got teeny chat book. So brilliant. So I can see Sarah saying reciprocity, appealing to authority, social argument. Absolutely. Trying to build rapport at the start, says Karen. Mark says appealing to authority and building rapport. So the rapport from the start, and I'm referring to the Government Department of Health guidelines. Rapport starts off with building rapport. It's really critical to build rapport at the start, actually, in any scenario, because that people are then listening. The trust starts. It is really important to do. And praise. I think I'd say recognition is what you want to, and we need to do more of that. There is evidence to say that in a virtual environment, there is less recognition for things because people are not seeing them. So actually making that point of doing that praise and recognition. Anything else that you noticed in there? Did you see any exchange in there or reciprocity? Yep, absolutely. So offering people home working kits and adjusting their working hours in exchange for the change there. So that is an exchange. So it's actually, I appreciate there is going to be an impact on it. So rather than just saying, this is what we're going to do in exchange of that, sometimes you can't always give people something in exchange, but you can maybe promise something in the future. So say, as soon as, we apologize, we've had to put you on 8% homework, 8% hours for now, but once we're through these times, we'll look at bonus or working hours or other ways to exchange. So it's having that thought process in there. What about the social argument? It's a bit weak actually in here because I haven't named a company, but I've attempted to do it. Similar business, Mark says, absolutely, comparing to another business. So if you've seen something's worked, I don't know, schools operating bubbles, or this country, it seems to have worked operating in this way, then that is an example of the social argument there. So I think the point is really, hopefully that isn't a huge amount longer, it is a bit longer, but with not much work, you can improve the way in which a message is going to land. And often the people who are writing these messages are not thinking like this. And so maybe people on here, you can actually help soften and enhance messages. I don't think you've got to use all 6 influencing styles in every bit of communication. But here's a question to you. On an average communication, official communication in your business, how many influencing styles would you say you see normally? 1, 2, more than that? How often would you see much in there in your organization? So Mark says 3. Okay, that's quite impressive. So generally you'd see 3 or 4 in yours, says Indira. So that seems, I'd say then that's quite decent if you're seeing that. I'd say certainly the business that I used to work for, I used to see generally authority, maybe logical reasoning and authority. If you're lucky, probably I would see a couple. And really the purpose of this communication is, can we enhance it? More in the current climate, says Helen, well, maybe people are trying a bit hard and actually we've really got to do that. And we shouldn't sit back. Totally, we need to do the rapport, we need to do the recognition. But it is often authority, says Mana there. So absolutely, it's often authority and logical reasoning are the most traditional corporate ones that I see. And if we can add in and make 3 or 4, make sure we've got that rapport, think about other social argument, other ways of influencing, just strengthening that communication, then people feel persuaded rather than coerced, and that has got to be a better place. So just a couple more things to close on here, which is just a similar piece. So that was the example together. In terms of their going back to here, I was thinking if you're having to persuade people to do any of those, I've given examples there where, do you think about authority? Is it government guidance as on 2 meters and mass? What guidance can you refer to that will be authoritative to people? Social argument, how can you think about similar businesses that have done what you're doing successfully? Case studies being the classic, testimonials where people ask for stuff. Exchange, what can you do that helps people? If they have got to come into the office, can we create new cooking space, new breakout space, whatever it might be? So those are just thoughts about how in this current climate, returning to the workplace, you can try and encourage the communication that goes out from your business to have a little bit more about it, to bounce people back and prove that there's an exciting future. So I've got one final poll. Clearly lots of you recognise them, and the final poll was really, if you're going to choose your top 3 that maybe you're going to work on in terms of doing more of it in yours, which styles do you think you perhaps are not so flexible with using? You can choose more than one, it's multiple choice. All of these polls are anonymous, it's just curiosity. Which ones do you think you're going to try and use more often? Perhaps you don't use them so much currently. Brilliant. Yes, so basically people are saying that appealing to authority tends to speak to itself more so, in logical reasoning you see more. So on the whole, as the votes are coming in, more building rapport, more inspiring. They're all kind of neck and neck actually, in terms of the 4 which perhaps are used less frequently usually. Let's give you 5 more seconds to get the rest of the votes in. So we've got neck and neck, inspiring and exchange, and then we've got social, referring to social argument and building rapport. So actually all of them. What have you got to lose really? Very little. You're going to help people feel that they're part of things, that they're being persuaded, or that it's in their best interest, that it's being well thought through. Makes change so much more palatable for people. So that's what I wanted to share with you this week. In terms of this, we are running at least 2 webinars a month. We will update our schedule. At the moment, I can only tell you what our next schedule is, which will be all about dysfunctions of a team. But we'll obviously with a virtual angle. So if you've come across the book called by Patrick Lencioni of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, I'm going to take you through how to avoid those dysfunctions, maybe how to help other people avoid those dysfunctions, and how to set up a team for success. We've still got the podcast, so lots of these topics will figure on our podcasts, and I'd love it if you wanted to get in touch with us. Do link in, do subscribe to the HR Uprising podcast. We've just launched our 60th episode, so that's there, and all the links are on hruprising.com, and keep an eye out for our future webinars. And if in fact you've got any topics that you'd love me to do a webinar on, because I've done a lot recently and it's good to know what people find helpful, if there's something on top, feel free to put it in the chat. I would love to see that, or email us or message me. What would help you guys now in terms of webinars, the information that you want to see out there in one of these virtual webinars. So that's all from me. Do get in touch. Let me know if you've got any feedback or any questions. If anyone does have a question on this, of course, please, I'll keep this open as people start to drop off. I'm happy to engage and answer any questions that you've got as well through the chat. Diversity and inclusion ideas would be great. Yeah, that is quite a good topic. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Brilliant. So on the diversity and inclusion, is it about, what would be the right heading for it? As ideas how to make it real, is it? Thanks, Cisa. Psychology of unconscious bias. Oh, that's a good one, Hayley. I'd have to research that one. Thank you, Mark. Changing culture during time. I'm making a note of these. Brilliant. Difficult conversations around diversity inclusion. That is a really good one as well. Yeah, okay. I do know I need to do something on diversity inclusion. I just don't think that I am an expert on it, so I need to find someone else to do it. Yeah, exactly. So it's not tick box. That's exactly the problem. Resilience, helping others to manage change. We've definitely got stuff on that, Cisa. Lots on that, and also in terms of the book, and we will run, we've got old webinars on that too, but I will run them again. Non-monetary reward and recognition. That's a good one too, liking this. Yes, okay. Namana, you always challenge me, Namana, don't you? Yeah. Cognitive diversity, very good. All right. Super. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm just jotting down your notes, and I'll aim to, I'd say it's all good inspiration, and if I don't cover them on a webinar, or I'll cover them on a podcast, I might bring an expert in as well. So I'm assuming there's no questions. Do feel free to join me. Thank you, Hayley. It is recorded, Nicola, so we have recorded it, and we will send the links out to everybody with the slides and the link to the recording. It takes a while for the recording to process, so it may be tomorrow. Yeah. Yes, I'm laughing at your point with some Namana. Actually, I was talking about I was thinking I want to get John Amachi on as well. I'm working on that. So yeah, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining and being so interactive, and joining the Zoom chat makes it much more fun for us. And keep an eye out. We will be doing future topics, and share the word, spread the word. If there's other people who'd like to sign up for the webinars, we've got historic ones on the website. We'll make sure the links in things that go through in the show notes that come out to you, the email that comes out to you. But do let other people know if they'd like to know about what we do. Thank you. I'll close it down. Have a great day, everyone.